to TARTLEcast on this beautiful Thursday here in sunny New Mexico. We have an interesting article here. You all know that we like to focus on the Big Seven. This is a local one that is has a great effect on the culture and the economy of New Mexico. So we want to talk about it because all the data has shown that it makes sense to move away from the sort of oil and gas sector. It's not really helping our planet.
Yeah, I know, and I know, Alex, especially whenever you look at New Mexico, and we've talked about this for another episode, New Mexico gets primarily most of its money, number one, from oil and gas companies, and then number two, the labs and government.
It gets its money from that tax revenue on that oil and gas.
Yes.
So they're not oil and gas companies that are local to New Mexico. They're actually outside companies, and we don't even get really the revenue here as like a public service. We just get the tax benefit that comes from it. So it's only a small portion of the profits that these people are reaping from. But we're making a transition here. There's up in the northwestern corner of the state of New Mexico, we have the San Juan Generating Plant, which is up by Farmington a little bit, or Shiprock. It's on the border of Colorado. And this thing lets off a lot of pollutants, and they're looking to decommission it as much as possible. But there needs to be something that'll go in place of that to account for that energy, right? The sort of growth here in the state it's gonna need that to sustain itself on. So what we find is that this new sort of climate action that New Mexico is taking is about this Energy Transition Act that it signed in 2019. So what they want to do is they want to invest in clean energy jobs and infrastructure. And we have abundant amounts of wind and sunlight here.
Yes.
A ridiculous amount. Like just an insane amount. We have a constant westerly wind that blows across the state, and it's always sunny, always blue skies. So in terms of our current technology with solar panels, solar technology, solar farms, and wind turbines and wind farms, it's a perfect setup for it. Now, from the economic sense, yes, this does seem like a good idea for these jobs that are coming in here, but what about, they talk about in this article here, and it may be a little politically driven, climate justice. So it's great that you have climate action, but what about the people that are directly affected within this area, right?
Yes.
I understand that you guys want to decommission this stuff, and you also get certain federal tax credits for having this green infrastructure. But what about the people you're planning to put it on this specific land? Do they want this here? How do they want it? Have you actually asked or spoken to those people that are going to be using this energy directly? And no, they haven't. This has only been reviewed strictly in an economic sense, right? And how are they supposed to know that this deal that was signed, is it really going to help them out, or is it going to be another one of those ones that only goes back to those oil and gas companies? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And when you look at New Mexico, we're bad in a lot of things. And I'm not saying that in a mean way. I'm just saying when you look at the data and you look at statistics, and I'm encouraged by this because I think we have the ability in this state to be an example.
You know what it reminds me of? Africa.
Yes.
Africa is resource rich, lots of land, a lot of foreign corporations coming in there and just raking it for everything it has. It has old, deep, rich cultures. We got the same thing here. Same exact thing. You see the same thing is happening. And, it's to the benefit of these corporations to keep the state poor.
Right.
Right? So it's easier for them to rake from it. But as we know, you can only keep it so poor for so long, especially with the influx of Amazon, Facebook, Netflix coming in here to New Mexico, the space programs.
Right.
That cost of labor is going to change. Real estate prices are going to go up. There's going to be more jobs. The economic structure will change. So that benefit won't last much longer for what they've essentially been, abusing for quite some time.
So whenever you look at shareholders, you look at CEOs, you look at these utility companies coming in, and saying, okay, this is our concern, not the local.
Yeah.
Because on our Big Seven, number 6 is, corporate transparency.
Yeah.
And I see this, especially when it comes to energy companies. I know they're trying to put profit first, but when an energy company turns around and says, let's put the environment first and then see how we can create a profit from that new dynamic would be interesting, and then to put your data together and say, would somebody pay a little bit more You know, would a collective pay a little bit more for electricity?
Ask them.
Yes, exactly.
All you got to do is ask them. And they have a quote here that says, a report from the Democracy Collaborative's Next Systems Project explains that democratizing the energy sector seeks not only to solve climate change, but also to address entrenched systemic inequalities. So, and they state here, inequalities that have left most of our communities dependent on the decision-making of utilities. This is what we talk about all the time with TARTLE, especially with your data and the things that affect you on a global scale. People with the resources are deciding for you.
Yes.
You're the one living there. They're not. You should be telling them how you want them to interact in your environment in which you live in. You should be telling people how they can use your data through your own sovereign control over it. If you want clean energy and specific jobs towards it, and this is a price that you're demanding to do so, let them know.
Yes.
Okay. But right now, there is a disparity between these really deeply entrenched utility companies that have been around for history in this quasi-public sort of nature that essentially have the death grip over many states. These are the infrastructure holders. And to find out that a majority of our energy production here is actually owned by a large company out of Spain. So who really then owns the state of New Mexico?
Yes.
Is it run sovereign by those people that live within the state, or is it actually owned by the utility companies? Is it owned by the oil and gas guys that are laying pipeline on the side of the, I-25 that runs north to south here? That's what it is.
Yes.
Why are we giving up our resources to these people in a totally other country for them to have control and never ask us about or ask us for our say in our own living conditions here in the state?
Yeah, and I think it's really important that we understand the role of TARTLE when it comes to utility companies and what we can do to help utility companies that may have that green focus, that may have that consciousness that says, yeah, we want to help.
We can help bridge their efforts and resources with the needs and wants of the people that are actually going to be using those resources.
Yeah, and it's so simple to do. I mean, if you want to have a conversation with us, we'd be more than happy. If you're a utility company and you want to be able to speak to your customers and be able to ask these questions, to be able to gather this data, this information, so that you can make informed decisions that are truthful and honest and that help the planet, how would they sign up?
They would go to tartle.co and they would click Get Started, and they would go through the workflow of signing up as a buyer of data. And not only are you going to get answers that are going to be beneficial to you, and it's going to be more accepting to the people within that state, you're also helping economically incentivize people that are in very depressed areas. Yeah, which is typically where you're going to build these things.
Yeah, and we don't. The cool part about it is if you're a buyer and you're like, I don't want to get hammered with all the sales stuff and all this, I'm worried about, you can sign up and we have people that will educate you in the process.
Here's what it is.
We have no salespeople. We want to.
There's no selling.
We want to educate you and walk you through that process for you to be the hero of your data.
How do we sell a service that has no barrier to entry?
Yes.
All you can do is educate. Mm-hmm. And if you don't want to use it, your competitor is going to use it and they're going to blow you out of the water.
Yes.
That's just as simple as that. It's not for us to, define what is competitive nature for you. We're completely non-competitive. We open this up to the entire world for them to use.
Yes, exactly. 100%.
Yeah,
so New Mexico, we'd love to be able to, we're here, we're local.
Yep.
We'd love to be able to work with you if you're a utility company, if you're a state agency, if you're not for profit.
If you're a research center, if you're a hospital, anything of that, let's, help people by, helping them control their information and economically incentivize them to share it with you so we can make better decisions and uplift the entire state.
Yeah. And you can go on to the buyer tab. Mm-hmm. And then from there, a data education, I don't want to say sales. What would you call it?
No, they're just data educators.
Yeah, data educator will get a hold of you and walk you through the whole process. That's that simple.
We got teachers like our schools have.
Yes.